Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm joined by Jason Massey of Randomness and Dungeons. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. Just we're in the middle of a move right now, like I said, so we're frazzled, man. It's just too much,
Move, apocalypse, some things are going on.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately I think for a lot of us, we're kind of insulated a little bit because we live online a lot.
Yeah, we thought we didn't go outside all that much. And then
Yeah.
when you're told you can't go get a haircut, you can't go to the store sometimes, like it's you realize like, oh wow, I guess I went outside a little more than I thought I did. I thought I was an introvert.
Yeah, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I do see the sun sometimes. Yeah, I guess so. I definitely did a thing where, so we got this, tracking familyware on our phones to keep track of the kids and ourselves, I guess. And like, that literally will tell you. And it's like, oh, I haven't left the house in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit when it's being thrown in your face like that. Now, Jason, for anyone who's not familiar with Randomness and Dungeons, your podcast, which you're kind of like an OG D&D podcaster, you want to give us like the elevator pitch of what you guys do?
So DNR has been around for 8.5 years now. We started in 2012. We have our own homebrew campaign and world, and we're actually going back to 4 groups starting in Arc 4. That's going to be in probably early November, somewhere in there. But it's 4 groups all exploring the same world and in the same timeline. So they can meet each other. They can, they can influence each other's campaigns and quests, and have many times, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And yeah, man, we've just been kind of hammering away at it since 2012.
Nice. And I apologize for keeping getting that backward. Dungeons and
Oh,
Randomness.
it's cool, man. It's
I
cool.
think I like the subtle correction. It was very kind of you, sir.
It's, after the second time, I'm like, okay, well, wait, no one's gonna find us. Hold on a second.
I apologize. I believe I'm dyslexic, to be honest with
Dude,
you.
I recently we wrote a book. I figured out halfway through, it's like, I think I'm dyslexic, like
Yeah.
kind of badly, especially with numbers. Like I started slowly figuring that out.
Yeah. Well, my daughter is, and we figured it has to come from someplace. And when I was a kid at that time, they didn't have labels like that, or I shouldn't say labels, diagnoses like that. It was just you're like bad.
Yeah, when I was growing up, it was like, oh, you're dumb. Oh, okay.
The good old 80s. So it turns out that we have a common thread. You're from Jersey, not very far from where I actually live and where we film from, because we film right out of Woodbury,
Yeah.
which is just up 295 from your hometown.
It's weird, man. Like I've been doing this for a while, and I very rarely meet people from Jersey that still live there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've met a lot of people from Jersey, but like they don't stay. That's
Yeah, Jersey gets a lot of flack, but like I like seasons. Like I like the change of the seasons. At
I
least
get that.
I think I do until I'm in the season and I'm like, I hate this season. Right?
I'm not a summer guy,
Yeah.
and I moved to one of the hottest states. we don't we get okay. California has a rainy season. I didn't know that when I moved here. The rainy season lasts 2 weeks, and that's when you get all your rain. That's it. That's why our state's on fire, I think. That's why it's currently just burning down.
That sounds like a reason why it might be on fire for sure.
And that happens once a year. That is frightening.
But I
That
don't know.
that doesn't you don't get natural disasters in Jersey all that much. Like every
No,
once in a while, like I think I got a tornado once when I was living
you might get a tornado like really rarely, or the hurricanes come through and we might catch a little bit, especially being in South Jersey.
There's the one that wrecked the boardwalk about
Yeah.
6, 7 years ago. That was bad, but like that's super rare.
Yeah, it's not like we don't get earthquakes and
Nah.
things don't spontaneously burn down usually. So we got mountains, we got beaches, we've got We've got two major metropolitan cities nearby, so I don't know. I kind of like it. So, so tell me about running four different groups in the same campaign world. That's a lot of D&D.
It's well, I wish that okay. At its peak, this was last month. I was running 9 groups. Because we do Patreon, of course, and
Okay.
I play with lovely Patreon folks who want to play with me each month. We do extra campaigns and stuff. We're just scaling that back after the book because we realized doing all that and writing a book is suicide. So we're scaling things back a little bit, and we're trying to kind of treat ourselves a little better. But yeah, it's a lot of D&D, but that's when I get to hang out with my friends. So that's the incentive. You talked about kind of balancing out being a DM and being a player. I think I've been a player 3 times in 8.5 years.
Oh yeah, that's plenty of playing.
That's just little one shots. It's like, oh yeah, I've gotten my fill. I'm good.
You're gonna have to create a Patreon level where you let them run for you.
That feels like a scam. I think that's. I'm pretty sure that's just a lovely scam. Hold on a second.
I will not confirm or deny whether that is indeed a scam. Yeah. So is that 9 groups in a week? Is that 9 groups in a
No, a
month?
month. That's a
Okay.
month. Yeah, 9 groups a week. I've never seen my wife. Like I'm pretty sure she'd just leave.
And
She's been.
you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know because you'd be busy playing
It'd be
D&D.
weeks till I found out. Where'd Elle go? Oh, she went back to Florida like January. Like that
Yeah.
was. No, we kind of branched out for a little while. We were doing Vampire the Masquerade. We tried that because 5e came out for that, and that's a pretty cool system. It's kind of nice to dip your toes into something else every once in a while, but mostly it's just D&D because I don't know. I love sword and sorcery, man. I grew up with that, so
Yeah.
it's in me.
Well, it's also kind of like your story is interesting in the sense you're like, hey, I'm going to learn D&D and I'm going to do it as a podcast. And apparently you did it right as the dungeon master as well, which I want to
Yeah.
say most
Stupid.
people, well, maybe. Nah, we always need more dungeon masters, so I won't dissuade anyone from doing that, whether it's stupid or not. I'll leave it up to individuals. But yeah, most people come to the hobby as a player first, and then then they grapple for a while, maybe even years, as to whether or not they should get behind the screen.
Dude, I like telling stories. Um I like just kind of jumping in and figuring out how to do something. I'm not an instructions kind of guy, mostly to my detriment. Like if you're putting together furniture, if you're putting together, it's like, nah, I'll figure it out. Come on, skip the tutorial. Let's go. And um, thankfully, I had a buddy at the time, Robert Wiesahan, who's still on the cast to this day. He still puts up with me, and he played since he was a kid. So every once in a while there's a little bit of that. There I was playing with bumpers at the bowling alley. Like I was able to kind of, it's like, hey, can I do that? Okay, cool, thank you. But mostly I had a story in my head I wanted to tell, and the rules just kind of were there. We started in 4e, if that gives you any idea.
Okay.
Which is kind of jumping into the deep end in terms of rules because it feels more rules heavy than say 5e.
It is, but also I would say that 4E was very codified, right? So
Yeah,
while there was more rules, but once you began understanding the rules, you could generally understand how they worked, even the ones you weren't as familiar with, because of the
right.
codification. And that's the thing. And I also feel like that was like the strength of the game, but it was also the thing a lot of people really didn't like. Um, you know,
I went in kind of blind to the whole thing because I'd never played a previous edition. So that was my first. It's like, I guess,
better for
yeah,
you.
yeah. It's like, oh, I guess that's what it's supposed to be like. And then 5e comes around, and then just because there are no spell slots in 4e or anything like that. So
Honestly, if I had to I honestly probably liked 4E better than I did AD&D first and second edition. I feel like it was a much better. It is. I'm just gonna say it's a much better game.
mhm.
But they changed things enough where it stopped feeling like D&D as I understood it, which doesn't make it a bad game.
No.
We played 4E for like I think a year and a half, and then we just kind of went back to playing other games more, and we didn't even know 5E was coming out. Like we started the YouTube channel, and I knew nothing about D&D Next, and the channel had been around for about 6 months, and I was like, I saw something in a forum about the basic rules being released. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey guys, did you know they're doing another D&D? Do you think we should look at this?" And that was like the springboard for our channel and for what we did. We just right place, right time, and it really helps. I was like, "Oh, you know what? We actually like this version of the game a lot more than any of the previous versions." As a matter of fact, it felt like they grabbed all the things we liked from the previous version and threw them into one game.
Right.
So that made it easy. So, going back to the podcast and your world, tell us about the world that you've created, because you've got this 400-page Bible for just one of, you said, 6 continents.
One of 6 continents. We're not done. We got years before we're done. That may have killed my partner. Actually, she's in the next room.
Yeah,
and she knows, but I think hearing it out loud might have killed her.
Listen, that's only like another 2,000 pages that you guys have to come up with now.
Well, if we do 400 for each continent, plus we were thinking about doing our own RPG system, so whatever, it's fine. It's just a little bit more work.
And then you're gonna have to take all the monsters and put them in their own monster manual, for convenience.
One day, yeah, no. So Theria is the world we play in, and we've been, I'd say, largely playing on one continent now for 8.5 years. We're just about to spread out and show some different stuff off. We've touched on different continents, and we've done history and stuff. We do something called Living in Theria on our Patreon, where people ask us all kinds of questions, and we just sit and answer that stuff, because we're very much focused on where the groups are on the show. So it's wherever they decide to go. So sometimes it'll be years before we wrap up a storyline, or it's very much a single timeline. So there'll be something we build up for 7 or 8 years, and then we finally got a chance to pay it off at the end of arc 3, which we just did. And there's this moment of there's this tension leading up to it. Like, man, I hope this is a good payoff for people who have been waiting since the 2010s.
Is group 1, are they still playing with the same characters?
No. So our arc 1 lasted 200 episodes, because when we started, we didn't know that this was going to be what it is. Like, you flash forward several years, and we wanted to switch over to 5e. We wanted to give something new a shot. You guys got started right around 2014, I'm guessing. Somewhere in there?
Yeah, 2014. Yep, the very beginning of the year.
Okay. So that's right around where we were looking at 5e, but we weren't ready to commit yet. And then at the end of arc 1, we decided, okay, let's start something new. And then arc 2 and 3 are kind of conjoined, and now we're going into arc 4 a little later this year, and that'll be a new thing. And all the groups are kind of re-rolling. We're doing, some characters come back, some characters don't, some get to retire, some die, some, it's epic storytelling. It's just a huge thing.
So over the course of the past 8 years, how many character deaths?
Dude, we don't have time. We don't have time. I'm not a DM that's looking to kill anybody. My job is to provide threat and to provide challenge. It's not to murder characters. I'm not that kind of DM. But I'd be lying if I said that, it happens constantly. I've played with Patreon groups who pay to play with me, which I still am baffled by. And I've wiped out whole groups in a sitting twice. It happens sometimes. I'm not trying to, but it does happen. I'd say our setting is lower magic setting, high stakes, lots of damage. It happens. To give you an example, there are rules for our resurrection, which can outright kill the person attempting to bring someone back.
Have you had anyone die from attempting to resurrect?
Yes.
Nice.
Absolutely. The rule of thumb is people better like you, because if you die, there has to be a damn good reason why someone would want to risk their life to bring you back. It's not as simple as paying someone a few shekels and they just, they
So
just get
what
to
is
come
so
back.
now I'm interested. What is the process for resurrection?
It depends on the spell because we had to adjust it to 5e. But
Mm-hmm.
in the book, The Adventurer's Guide to Theria, which is available on Amazon and Drive Through RPG and all that good stuff, um, there are set rules. So if, let's say, you die, you're in a party, you have a cleric friend. Cleric friend comes by and they're an appropriate level, and they say, "Okay, I really liked Dave, so I'm going to try and bring Dave back. All right, here we go." Now they're going to attempt to cast this spell. Let's say it's just raise dead, like your base, like that's where you get. So the higher level you are, the less risk there is. Raise dead is the first time you really get a chance to try and bring somebody back. So they cast this spell. They're going to take damage no matter what. So this damage could outright kill them. We actually had that happen very recently. So whether or not the other person comes back, this damage can't be negated. It can't be reduced. It's just, it is what it is. Person coming back gets to roll on this table, and sometimes they get to come back free as a bird. They're great. Sometimes they come back with some sort of insanity or something twisted them. The process of dying and coming back, it just messed something up in them, and it's a lot, man.
I'm having Pet Cemetery vibes there.
A little bit, a little bit. Sometimes dead is better, man. It's just, and that's we want consequences. We don't think death should be something that you just, it's like, yeah, I died yesterday, but I'm back. Like there should be weight to it. There should be some kind of pomp and circumstance.
What would you say the hook is to playing in Theria?
I'd say the hook. And it for me, I have done my best over the course of 8 years to instill one thing. Theria is a living, breathing place. When we made our book, we wanted to take everything we've done in the show and kind of hand it to people. So we wanted to do stuff that had never been done before. I have purchased pretty much every Wizards book there's ever been, a bunch of third-party stuff. I try to support the community as much as possible, back Kickstarters and stuff. And we looked at setting books, and there was some stuff that's like, why has no one ever done this? And on our show, we really like to flesh out NPCs. They're not just quest givers. They're not just cardboard standees that give you something to do. When you're away, stuff happens. Towns move on. People move on. Everything changes. So it doesn't revolve around the players. The players are a big part of things. They have agency. They could change the world, but the world's not going to stop for them. So in the book, we have rich histories for 25 towns and cities. We have 250 plus NPCs, including the cast. We hit the stretch goal, so the entire cast is in the book, all with stats, backstories, all that. So we wanted to give everybody as much to possibly kind of bring this world to life as possible. I'd say that's the hook.
So, what advice would you give someone who runs a game in Theria?
I'd say I'd give someone the same advice in Theria that I'd give starting your own homebrew thing. Like, focus on one place. Get a feel for one place. If you want to start in a town or city, like, pick that one place and then start spreading outward, because it's a lot. There's a lot of raw information. Like, we have like total information for like alcohol in the world and how that works, and tons of beverages. There are recipes. So pick a place that you kind of gravitate to, and then start building stories there, and then kind of build out, because otherwise it's too much. Like, no one's going to memorize 400 pages.
Yeah, when it comes to world building, that was like the best advice. Even for whether you're running or creating, that's the best advice. Just start small and work your way out. And also, you end up with not doing a bunch of work that may or may not ever get used.
That's especially when you're starting a new thing. That's the easiest bit of advice, right? Just it's like, okay, get to know this town until you know the streets, who's on there. Like, you can give someone directions and then move out, because that makes the place feel more real, right? It makes it feel like it's a place that you can envision in your head, and thus you can kind of communicate that to your players.
Is it easier for you to give directions in the town you live in right now, or one of your towns in Theria?
I hate to say it, I live in Theria. I don't, especially now. I'm not allowed to go outside, so like
Yeah.
and then I'm about to move to Sacramento, and that's I don't know that city at all. So yeah, definitely. Sadly, I have maps for Theria. I don't know. I use GPS for everything. I don't know where I'm going,
Luckily, we have GPS.
dude.
We don't have to learn about the real world.
Oh God, I can't believe we ever had a time where we had to actually memorize streets and know. So if someone gives me directions, it's like, yeah, go up that way, a mile and a half, and then hit this street. I'm not remembering all that. Like I'm gonna get lost.
And
So
also, right, you're also from the same part of the country I'm from. So directions are different there, right?
yeah,
That's like you give directions by landmarks.
yep.
Like where if you're in the city, it's like, oh, you're gonna go 3 blocks, you're gonna pass the street, you're gonna go to the street, and everything will be kind of like organized that way.
There's a grid system. There's
Yeah,
there's rules in place. There's
yeah.
not. Yeah, it's yeah,
Not sheer chaos. And we're like,
yeah.
you're gonna find a tree that was knocked down by lightning 3 years ago. You can still see the scorch marks.
When you hit the big rock, turn left. You're good.
Although I feel like that way of navigating and giving directions is way better for a fantasy game.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so it's a transferable skill. Oh man. So do you have a favorite group? Can you pick a favorite?
Oh
I
man,
won't
I
tell.
like. Here's the thing. What's cool about playing with each group is the same reason I like hanging out with my friends, because they all have different personalities. Everyone's bringing something new to the table. They're bringing different experiences, and they bring that to their role play. So every group has this wildly different feel, and you could kind of tell that by our season finales. Everyone had different stakes. Everyone, sometimes it's a big chaotic battle. Sometimes it's just like inner turmoil within a group, and sometimes there's kind of this weighty, like moral choice type thing. And it's something kind of crept up on us. So like I'm gonna take a cheesy answer here. I like playing with everybody. Like they're all great for different reasons.
No, I agree. I mean, so we started doing this thing, kind of, when we started Nerdarchy, where we would run, basically 3 games a month, and it would be Ted would run, I would run, and we'd get another DM to run something that wasn't D&D
Mm-hmm.
for us, and you know, and it would be all different groups. It wasn't the same groups playing. Like some of the players were the same, but for the most part, like each group was a different group. So that was, that for us, enhanced and enriched the experience. And also, it was like the first time we were actually able to finish campaigns because we weren't getting burned out. And also, it's like, this week you run this game and playing this game, and then the next week it's like a different group of people, and it's a different experience. So that the really changing up the scenery helps a lot.
That's we get emails all the time talking about starting a podcast, starting your own homebrew, and I tell everybody it's the easiest thing in the world to start a new thing.
Yeah.
It's really hard 6 months in when you're continuing the thing and trying to keep it interesting and try to keep that same level of enthusiasm. And that's one of the most challenging things. Just keep it interesting to yourself.
What was the moment when you knew you had something and you're like, yeah, this is it, this is what we're doing?
Honestly, the first couple of times we got emails, like way back in the day, and
Yeah.
and some of those people still listen, and it's the first time I realized, like, wait, you listened to that, and you wrote in to tell us about that. Like that was mind blowing to me. It still is, just to have somebody say, it's like, oh, I've been listening since, you know, 7-8 years ago, or you keep
Yeah.
me company at work, or something like that. And it's like, I used to listen to shows that kept me company at work. That's awesome. Like
Yeah.
it feels like yesterday that, like, you're working in a warehouse and just trying to kill time. Like I totally get that feeling from people.
Yeah, I mean, that's super exciting when you get those emails. Or like, I'm sure you've been doing this longer than us, so I know for a fact you must have gotten those emails where someone's like, "Hey, I was in this bad place for a while, and like
Yep.
it was your show that got me through. The first time like I got a message like that, I was like, "Whoa, this like silly thing we do,
Yeah.
where we play make believe and roll funny shaped dice, actually matters to at least this person, right?" And it just like it seemed like it makes all those like sleepless nights worth it.
It's a total, I don't want to say byproduct, but that's not necessarily the reason you get into it, but it makes total sense because when I was working or something like that, listening to a podcast and listening to somebody I could identify with, it's just nice to have kind of something to distract you for a while. And I always tell people, if we can distract you from what's going on now for just a minute, oh my
Yeah.
God, like fantastic. I'm glad. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot right now. It's just, sometimes talking to people on our Discord or emails, that's what keeps me distracted. That's what keeps me kind of grounded. Is just like, okay, there's some sane people in the world. It's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of things that you do in life, it's like the people make it awesome and make it suck at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Anyone has and anyone who has gone into any of the comment sections knows exactly what I'm talking about, and it's different when those comments are actually being directed at you, but then you do get those messages from people and you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like I said, that first one we ever got, that was like, oh, you helped me get through this thing. And I got that message and I handed my phone to my wife and she read it and just started crying. I was like,
I I think this community, like our show specifically, but the greater community is really good about supporting each other. I get very few messages that start out with like, you suck, and that's the nicest version of the thing I
yeah,
get.
yeah,
But I get very few of those, and a hell of a lot of just someone generally being nice. Just it's really refreshing for the internet, to be honest.
yeah. Well, so I guess it also depends where. Like, rarely will we get those messages where they're like directly at us. The bad ones always happen in the comments, and that's because those people want an audience, right? Anyway, that
Usually, yeah, it's very rarely in an email these days.
yeah, trolls are performative in nature. I might have to work that into a game now. But so um, so four groups is the four shows, right? And then the other ones are like your patrons and stuff.
Yeah, we do. Man, we record a lot for our Patreon. Again, we're just starting to scale back a little bit now because we're trying to write more. We the first book was just to case the joint, rob it a little, and now it's like, oh, we want to do this. This was really fun, and we're really happy with the end product, and it can only go up from here. So that's another full-time job is working on, we're also working on a second project that's I we haven't officially announced it, but we're working on a comic
Okay.
for one of our base stories that we wanted to flesh out. And I'm really excited about that because it's a project we started a long time ago and had to kind of back burner, and now we got a couple of months. Let's work on it.
So are you a comic fan?
I grew up a comic fan. Yeah, I I fell out when I lost my collection when I moved. Um, but my dad was a comic fan, so I grew up with all the Silver Age stuff. Like, he had a big collection, so I've always been a Superman fan. Even silly Silver Age Superman that died every other week, or got fat, or was a baby, or whatever like that. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hugely influenced by comics and pro wrestling. That's basically my personality.
Yeah, I did a stint with comics until like my early 20s. And then I just like at some point looked at how much I was spending and I was like, I should just become a drug addict. I think I would save some money.
I I used to do the comic shop. There's something. There's a there's a big adrenaline rush for the weekly comic shop thing.
Yeah, the pull
Um,
list.
but now it's trade paperbacks. You save so much money and you get the whole story all at once, and I can wait.
That's kind of what I've been doing. It's like I moved away from that, and then every couple of years I would just like pick up a bunch of trades and read through them. Although I found as I get older and I go to do that, I know less and less of what's going on, so it becomes harder.
It's you basically got to follow one property, and that's like, okay, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you got to read all the Spider-Man stuff, and there's so many crossovers, there's so many, weekly serialized things. It's tough to keep up with it all.
I
Geez,
think
when they did New 52, how many Batman comics were there? There were like, so of the 52, I think 20 of them were Batman.
it fell apart for me when I started seeing Avengers versus X-Men, and I had no idea what was going on. I just felt old.
It's probably a misunderstanding. I just saved you some time. There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
They're friends now, I'm sure.
Yeah, perfect. But yeah, so and I like that stuff to garner influences for stories, right? Because comics tell great stories, and all that
Yeah.
stuff always ends up in my games, whether it's TV shows, movies, weird NPR programs. I draw inspiration from. Where are some of the odder places you've found inspiration for your gaming?
Oh boy. Song lyrics or something like that. Because like I used to work like 12 to 14-hour shifts, like overnights. So you get punchy, you're listening to music, you're listening to podcasts, anything. You just devour content like Galactus. So it'll be like 2 a.m. and you'll hear some song lyrics that you've heard 1,000 times before. It's like, oh, that's an idea. Hold on a second. Like you just start jotting stuff down. It's very much the shower principle. It's when you're not thinking about it. It's when you get something gold. Just before I fall asleep, I'll think about a chore I have to do or someone I have to call. And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be neat if there was a story that, it's sometimes that's gold. And then sometimes I'll wake up the next day. It's like, what the hell was I thinking? I can't make a campaign based around a chicken sandwich. Hold on. Like, and you kind of backtrack a bit.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I did road construction for a decade, and that was all overnight work, and it was all hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
It's like you got a job to do, but you can't do it until these other three crews ahead of you each do their job. So everybody's waiting for the for the crew in front of them to finish.
Yep.
So it's like got hours to do nothing, and then all of a sudden it's go 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 go. Yeah. So, but thankfully in the modern age we have like Netflix and stuff right on our phone.
Dude, I just started watching Cobra Kai because it's all on Netflix now, and it's gorgeous. I love it, and it's something I didn't know I always wanted until I started watching it.
We finished it in 2 days. I watched it with my son and my wife, and they're short, right? So it's easy, and it's so cool to see the characterizations and the stories that they're telling, and it's like wow, this is so much better than the movies.
I mean, yeah, but they've had like 35 years or whatever it's one of those things. I started watching it and I stayed up to like 2 a.m. the other night, just binging 6 or 7 episodes in a row. It's wonderful.
Yes, I highly recommend it. The only thing that sucks now is I gotta wait until season 3 finally drops.
Yeah, I see. I missed that wait. So now I imagine they moved it to Netflix because they got season 3 on the way.
2021. It's supposed to.
Oh hell!
Which feels like so far away. I mean, who knows? We don't even know if we're going to see a 2021 at this rate, right?
Fingers crossed, man. I hope we're not packing all our stuff for no reason. Like
the calendar was just going to fall off right there. But yeah, that was a fun ride. They're just too short. Looking forward to the next one. And with us all being cooped up, like Netflix is like a godsend. That and Amazon Prime.
I'm actually starting to watch shows like I'm about to get into Umbrella Academy. Bree's been trying to get me to watch that, and it's like, yeah, bring on another show. Let's go, because The Boys isn't quite out yet, so waiting on that. So there's been a thousand things on my watch later list, and now we kind of got a little bit of time, and we can't go anywhere. So why not?
I will say, it is so easy not to read comic books now because like they're making them all into shows and movies, so
Yeah,
you can kind of just absorb them that way.
and I mean, well, some of them are faithful recreation. Like the Boys is pretty good from what I hear. Like faithfully adapting stuff, but then you get something like the New Mutants. So you never know.
Yeah,
It's a crapshoot.
yeah. Well, I mean, most of the Marvel stuff that's controlled by Marvel's been really good.
Yeah,
Um, and but like then there's things like the Boys where I'm not familiar with the original material,
I
so
wasn't either.
I don't need to like it doesn't really need to be faithful for me. Even like
No.
the Shannara series, like I enjoyed those, but I suspect I might not have if I read the books.
Yeah.
You know, so fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, it's always better to go watch the show or the movie first, and then if you're going to do the book or or the original content, to then do it, because at least this way it's like it gets better, not worse.
I found that out with the original Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I Jurassic Park came around, everyone fell in love, and I'm like, I'm going to go read the book. It was the driest piece of literature.
Yeah.
It's like we're 100 pages in. It's like, when did we get to the dinosaurs? Like,
Yeah.
where are they? And maybe I was just young. I couldn't appreciate it.
It makes you wonder, like, how did this ever make it to a movie?
Yeah, someone saw something in it.
Yeah. Well, they were kind of entertaining depending which ones you watched. I mean, what is there? There's like 15 of them now, I think.
I'm talking about one.
Yeah.
Everything that came after was like, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Some of that stuff is just perfect for watching when it hits whatever your favorite streaming service is.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what's the next continent you guys plan on going to?
We did a vote, and the continent we started on, the book that's out now is volume 1. That's Alara. So that's it's called the Mainland for the most part, which is kind of an egotistical thing for the people who live there. They call it the Mainland. Everyone else calls it. It's like, yeah, you're just a continent. You're
the land. Everyone else calls it the land.
You're fine. They're kind of the America of.
Yeah.
We're probably going to go to Talor, the next one, which is this kind of war-torn continent. Two races have been fighting so long that they don't remember why this started. It's just been, eons for fighting for supremacy, and there's this huge stalemate. The center of the continent's just war-torn, destroyed. So the land that they're fighting over is gradually becoming less and less valuable because you can't grow anything there. It's just destroyed. So that's probably where we're going to go next, it looks like.
And so how often do your players, travel to these other continents? How much do they come up in the stories, or is everything kind of self-contained?
I'd say within the last 3 or 4 years, we've visited like 2 or 3 other continents, and
Okay.
we've kind of gotten to poke around and explore a little bit. But the next arc, we're probably going to be starting fully on other continents and then branching out. So we're going to see more of these places than we ever have, which is great because I wrote a lot of this stuff down 7-8 years ago, and now we actually get to see it. So it's like I get to blow the dust off some of these notebooks and actually show people stuff. So that's exciting.
So your style of GMing, how much prep do you do?
Tons. Like it because part of that making these characters, these NPCs feel like they're characters is getting to know them myself. Like if somebody asks me a question, it's like, did they go to school? Where do they come from? Where I gotta answer that. And I probably obsessively prep stuff too much, maybe, because I get in my own head. And if a session gets canceled, I usually throw most of the stuff that I prepped to do it over again. Because it's like, what was I thinking? That's terrible. And then I start and I re-prep everything.
What advice would you give to other GMs about prepping their material?
Oh, I'd be a hypocrite and say, don't get too much in your own head. And I mean, it's try to be comfortable with what you're doing and just have a little faith in yourself, because there's a reason people are there playing with you, and there's that you know, no one's expecting you to come in and just tell them a story. They want to interact with it. So make it interesting, make it, you know, make it something that people are actually going to want to sit down with and spend some time in. And I think, just like any story, there needs to be problems that need to be fixed, but there also needs to be things that work well and people can interact with, and it feels like a place that's like, oh, okay, I get how people can live here. A lot of my problems with certain D&D settings or campaigns is it's so messed up. It's like, how does daily life occur? How do farmers live here? How do, you know, how do shopkeepers or bakers or whatever, how, you know, it's a good thing there's adventures, because Jesus, like,
how has not everyone been eaten by now?
right. It,
Yeah.
you know, and if that's the kind of story you're telling, I think people, that there's a place called Lockford in our campaign, and it was coated with werewolves. And werewolves, in our setting, are walking blenders, is what I tell people. They are deadly beyond measure. And we have stats for them in the book and everything. And a single werewolf can take out a party if it gets to, you know, really cut loose. So this town was almost non-existent. Windows are boarded up. People are hiding. They're, you know, it's not a regular town. And you instantly walk in and go, oh, okay, I'm getting a vibe from this place. Maybe we should keep walking. That type of thing.
Nice. No one's on the streets after dark.
No, hell no. That's a good way to die.
How many monsters have you kind of reinvented like that? Where, you know, definitely the werewolf you're describing is not the one in the monster manual.
No, and I didn't know. I guess this comes from like me not knowing a lot about D&D. I guess coming in, so like I didn't know all the campaigns. I didn't know all that stuff. So when I came in, I have kind of an image of what makes sense and what it's like. Yeah, werewolves. They're, you know, and in the monster manual, they're kind of walking, talking, kind of civilized-ish. They carry spears. They transport. It's like, that's not what I have in my head. I'm picturing like the old Universal style, like monster werewolf. Yeah. And you know, you kind of go from there. Some things like kobolds and stuff like that. In our world, kobolds are kind of related to Dragonborn. Dragonborn are kind of related to Dragon. They're all bastardized versions of each other, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, in our settings, Dragonborn, look at kobolds, it's like, ew. Like that, you know, it's like you're kind of like us, but no, you're not.
Yeah, we had kind of a running joke in, you know, the first campaign we ran, where we had a couple players playing goblins before there were goblins. Just kind of took a couple of halflings, filed off the serial numbers, and painted them green. You know, because they wanted to play goblin juggalos.
Oh God!
And I didn't know what a juggalo was, to be honest with you. Before they're like, "Hey, we want to do this thing," and then I like did the unfortunate thing of Googling. Right? It's just some things should not be Googled, and I learned what juggalos were, and so they were playing gobelos, and we had so they would always, you know, kind of mess with the Dragonborn in the party, because there were a couple of them, and then like at some point in the campaign, it was hinted that there was a relation between, you know, kobolds and Dragonborn, and
okay.
the gobelos had a field day with that. And they also like to make fun of them for not having tails. Where'd your tail go? And then they would relay tales of their lizard folk friend who did have a tail. So I don't know. D&D is goofy. We get silly with it sometimes. We actually ended up doing a different campaign with relating Dragonborns and kobolds and dragons more tightly, where this particular location, the dragons rarely would breed true anymore, and they would have these clutches of eggs, and like from them would spring kobolds and Dragonborn instead of dragons.
Okay.
Super rare to actually get a dragon from dragons mating.
So it's like blind loot boxes for dragons.
Pretty much. But except for very rarely a kobold could ascend to dragonhood. So they're like still kind of the lower station, amongst the dragons. But at the same time, it's like, well, dragons are super rare, and one of them might be a dragon waiting to happen. So it's fun to take the D&D lore and then switch it up and kind of make it your own. And I would encourage more people to do the same. Obviously,
it's all rife for homebrew. Like that's one of the first lines in our book. It's like, dude, take all this, take none of it, take some of it, do whatever you want. It's your world. Go ahead, run.
As a DM, what is your favorite monster to kind of tinker around with and use?
Man, that depends on what I'm in the mood for. Because I'm not a huge fan of status effects, right? Like I'm not, because when you get that power creep going on once you get past like level 8, 9, 10, and you kind of layer the 4th was terrible for like status effects all over the field constantly. But I do like taking a monster and playing up a single facet, like, rust monsters or something like that. Something that has like, it does one thing very well, and it kind of turns an entire encounter on its head. So you're used to fighting bandits or, kobolds or whatever. And then you get into a situation where it's like, oh, wait, we can't just hit this and everything's fine. Or, oh, this is immune to this type of magic. Or, oh, like I love messing around with stuff like that. Just getting someone used to something. And then it's like, oh, you can't do that thing. I'm sorry, fire mage. This is immune to fire. Like you're going to have to figure out something else.
Oh, you're using fire. This actually makes it stronger. Yeah, I definitely get that. Whenever we do monster videos, I'm always like, and this is my favorite monster. And, so it's like whatever one we're talking about, especially a lot of the classic ones, I tend to gravitate towards. And then, so it maybe by doing a bunch of monster videos, it turns out I don't have a favorite monster. They're all my favorite.
But I mean, again, it's like a Swiss Army knife, right? It's what it's the one that does the job currently. It's having a bunch of different toys.
Yeah. For us, the one of the fun series that we've done is Monster BFF, and that's where we just take two monsters that probably shouldn't go together and put them together and figure out how to make that work.
That actually sounds really cool.
And sometimes we come up with funny and silly things, or sometimes it's cool things. You've got jungle goblins riding giant wasps, or we did like a tribe of orcs that would raise griffins.
Okay.
And like you came up like when they got too old to fight anymore, the warriors they would be like the tenders of the griffins and teach the new upcoming warriors and. And then we create lore like, oh, well, this came about because there was this one orc chieftain that wrestled a griffin into submission. That was the leader of that
happened
pack.
Completely by accident.
And that, and ever since there's been, this joining of these two different species that work together. So, fun things like that. And again, it's D&D, so you get to change it and make your own lore and tell stories, like you've said numerous times. It's all about.
It's whatever's stories. Fun, dude. That's the point.
It's always weird to me when I see like new players, or not even new players. I don't say for sure, but like when they're always like asking permission to do things with the game.
Yeah,
it's like.
But I mean, that comes from I did the same thing when I started, because I think unlike just TTRPGs in general.
Yeah.
If you're playing a board game, if you're playing a card game, if you're playing a video game, they all have rules. There's things you can do and things you can't do. And I don't think someone wants to come in and start mucking everything up, right? They go, oh, I don't want to ruin the game. It takes a while to get in that headset of like, oh, just do it. Like it's fine. Like as long as people have fun, that's the rule. Like that's the golden one. Do what you want.
Yeah, I guess why I never went through that phase is because like today we have the internet.
Yeah.
When I started, there was no internet. It didn't exist yet, right?
Right.
There was literally no one to ask permission. Oh, like you had this one guy you could ask, and it was probably the person that got you into the game. And you're like, hey, can I do this? And they're like, I don't care what you do. Oh,
But I mean,
okay.
I think that's a mindset though. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's a rule book, so there are rules. I don't want to color too far outside the lines and break everything.
Yeah.
Especially if there's stats, because people go, okay, well, someone balanced this. What do I know? When
Yeah.
you get, when you play for a while, you go, yeah, it was just a group of guys. Like it was just they all sat down and like they decided what was balanced. And only sometimes is it balanced. Like CR ratings don't mean anything, really.
Yeah, there was a great thing on Twitter the other day, and someone's like, this is the XP for an ancient red dragon. That's a deadly encounter for a 20th level party. I'm like, yeah, that's when you have to realize the challenge system is a little bit broken,
Yeah.
and add a second dragon. It's like, it's like 4 20th level characters will rip a red dragon apart.
Yeah, totally.
So, what is that? What is the highest your campaigns have gone to for the podcast?
Oh man. In 4E, the highest we got to was level 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And this last arc, the highest we got to, I think, was level 12 or 13, right about there. But it's a totally different feel. It takes a while for people to level up because I don't just hand XP out. And the one thing that I try to stress is if you find a peaceful way around a situation, you still get XP. Like it's not, you don't have to kill the thing. Like if you figure it out, good for you. Like here's a crap ton of XP. We don't talk about levels on the show that much because I want people to think about their characters as characters, not numbers.
Makes sense. 12, and also like 12, 13 is right around where your character they start getting out of hand for what they can do.
Yeah, with 4, it was a little before that, right? 9 or 10 is where it starts getting crazy with status effects. But yeah, I like 12, 13 is where it starts getting a little crazy for 5e2.
Yeah,
But that's where you start getting to bust out fun powers and stuff.
there's that too. I mean, but
Yeah.
we were talking like 6th, 7th level spells.
Yeah.
And also it's like, and then when you actually get up there to like I said, we've played 2 campaigns now that have actually gone to level 20, which it's like over the course of us playing this game for like 20 years.
Yeah.
We've never seen that happen. Like campaigns die, they fizzle. Someone else wants to run a game, someone else has an idea. I guess that's a little bit different for you because you've always done it as a podcast.
Dude, I'm obsessed with content. Like that's something that gets me to try new things. If I can make an excuse, it's like I'll make a video out of it or I'll make a podcast out of it. I've tried more new things because of the show than anything else, just because, it's a good way to talk yourself into something.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you used to do a wrestling podcast prior to this one. So you had a little bit of podcasting experience.
Yeah, I did that for 4 years. So I went from recording podcasts with a Rock Band mic, like back in 2009, to like what we do now. So you just kind of pick things up along the way. It's like, oh, this is how you edit this. This is how you do noise cancellation. This is how, you just pick little things up. If I tried to listen to the first thing we ever recorded, I don't think I could get through it. I would just want to fix it.
Yeah, I know. We have our early videos up, which are they're terrible. But sometimes it's good to see where you came from. Keeps you humble. Have you ever considered crossing the streams?
We did. I played a wrestling RPG before. That was fun. Like we've done that, and I have gradually shared wrestling with Bree and with Elle, and they kind of fell for it hook, line, and sinker a bit. Like it took a while to explain. It's like, well, here's why it's cool. Because from the outset, it doesn't look cool. But it's long form storytelling. It's just like we do, but with a live crowd, and with you try to explain why you care about it. Sometimes you can kind of get that across. A lot of people just see fake fighting, so it's tough.
What RPG did you use?
Worldwide Wrestling.
Nice.
Which is I think the best system for it right now. Like I think that's the one everyone uses. I think they're coming out with a sequel pretty soon.
Yeah, I have not done it. We've done some Marvel wrestling back when I was a teenager playing the Marvel Phase Rip game.
Okay.
And yeah, we would use that. I think we actually ended up doing more of that than actually like playing campaigns because it was easy, right? We could just get together and be like, all right, which superhero do you want to be? And then we could just beat the snot out of each
It
other.
was like a little arena thing, like a little one shot. Yeah.
Yeah, teenage boys. What else are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Um, so is there? What's the strangest story you've told using D&D?
Oh boy.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I there are characters I like to revisit.
Yeah.
There's a character named Morgan Osgood who is a conspiracy theorist. So he'll pull someone into a dark alley and tell them about how, certain government people are really lizard people in disguise. And he, I love playing a character like that because you get to go full wacky. Um, we usually tell we usually tell kind of heavier stories, but that's just because that's what the cast picks. They kind of go down these avenues, and I love
Yeah.
to take something and kind of twist it on their head or twist the knife. But playing a wacky character like a weird stalker gnome who tied his partner to a tree in the forest and burned him alive because he called him short. Just weird stuff like that. Just having interesting NPCs don't always mean completely hinged.
Right.
I kind of like unhinged NPCs.
I love the idea of the government is actually ruled by lizard people.
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you get them out of the swamp? Like,
Yeah, dude, there's so many there are so many things you can kind of take from real life, and it's like, what if there was an NPC kind of like that, like
yeah.
kind of like this guy, or kind of like, like it's fun to kind of play with that.
So I imagine you have your own pantheon.
Yes, we kind of took some of the gods from the pantheon and just took what we like and took, kind of twisted them here and there. Like Vecna always got a bad rap, in my opinion. Like undeath doesn't mean evil; it could mean second chances. Like I like stuff like that. So we've tried to do a good job of taking this small pantheon of gods and kind of extolling their virtues in a decent way. You can kind of see where everyone's coming from, and kind of having this idea that they all have to work together. And so there's this weird bureaucracy to godhood.
Yeah, I'm totally digging the undead god of second chances.
Yeah, like it's, dude, if you've been resurrected, you kind of gotta worship the god of undeath in some small low key way, at least, right? Like, high five to Vecna.
But I am like re-envisioning them as like a door-to-door salesperson.
Oh, like, have you heard the good word? Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Hey, grandma didn't come back on her own. Maybe you should go to church. Thank Vecna. Like, that's, we do this whole big spread of the history of the gods in the book and kind of our take on the artwork for it. And it was really fun getting to write that.
My friend, you see a zombie. I see a second chance. Yeah, sure, they eat brains now, but their palate has been expanded. I never even thought of trying brains before. Nice. So we're coming up on the hour mark. Final words before we head on out?
Well, one, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was nice chatting with you.
I appreciate you coming on. It's really, it's good to talk to another Jersey boy or former Jersey boy. Even if you slightly betrayed us and fled, but it's okay.
Look, man, I've betrayed Auburn too. I'm leaving that too. So now I'm going to Sacramento. Yeah, again, please go take a look at our book, The Adventurer's Guide to Theria, Volume 1 Alara. It is on Amazon. It is on Drive-Thru RPG. It's coming to bookstores near you. Go check it out. Give us a rating. Give us a chance. That's the end of my huckstering. I'm done.
Nice. And as always, the links are in the description. And then if you come back later when this is no longer live, it'll be in the pinned comment as well. Yeah, Jason, I really appreciate you coming on. It was great to connect and chat for a while here. And to everyone else, stay nerdy.
Bye, guys.